Scott, thanks for joining today, man.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be awesome.
Excited to have you. As we talked a little bit offline, my wife Brittany knows Scott's family pretty well, and her friends know the family pretty well, and have spoke highly about you. So, been hearing about you for 3 years. We're just now meeting here, but you've probably never heard of me. But I've heard about you for a couple of years now, so I've got the upper leg here in terms of the conversation.
Oh, well, it's good to meet, man. I'm excited for this topic. Definitely
Yeah,
drives me.
it's important, and I'm glad that it drives you. It's something that comes up in our household just about every day. We
Yeah.
don't have kids yet, but we do hope that it's in our future, and we've both seen it done well and done wrong. And so on that topic, I was flipping through your book, Value Creation Kid, and I honestly I can't wait to go back and just read it in depth, the whole thing, because I was just trying to get as many notes as I possibly could for this conversation. But the first thing that came to mind when I was reading through it is this whole quote, and I've heard this on so many podcasts now, so it's kind of cliche. But hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. So maybe let's just dive right into the book, 30,000 foot view. Define healthy struggle, why it's important for our kids.
Well, yeah, I think healthy struggles, we call them healthy struggles, not unhealthy struggles. And they're the only way that kids grow. So if the goal of a parent is to raise future adults, not future children, then those children need to go through healthy opportunities to grow and learn capabilities, learn confidence, and create value in the world. And unless you go through those healthy struggles, and there's 100 of them, then you're not going to be prepared the first time you get hit with something out in the real world. And so, this idea here of a healthy struggle, any academic understands this, any athlete, these are how kids learn skills. That's just how they learn emotional regulation, self-reliance, grit, financial skills, business skills, practical skills, life skills. All these things have to come through healthy struggle. Not unhealthy, because an unhealthy struggle is like tough love or trauma or neglect or abuse. Okay, that is not a healthy thing for a kid. But a kid has to go through healthy struggles, and there's two rules to a healthy struggle for us. Okay, number one, it's a safe environment, right? They're not at risk of harm, like physical harm. And the second rule is you're on their team. You're their coach, mentor. You're with them in it. You're helping them through it. You're encouraging them all the way through, right? And when you have those two rules, it's like, yeah, let's let our kids go through as many things like that as possible so that they can get a whole tool belt of capabilities and skills to succeed in the real world.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the rules and how simple yet important both of those are.
Yeah.
So what in your experience or in terms of definition, what is different between healthy struggle and then I think in your terms in the book called it a traumatic experience and hopefully we're not talking extreme trauma here, but kind of what's your difference in definition there?
Yeah. I mean, like trauma and tough love, like that's where you have acute or sustained or chronic like injury, mentally, physically. One of the things that we teach, so our program is we coach families, we teach family legacy, we help kids basically have success in the real world when they leave the nest, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what a lot of parents are worried about. They want to make sure that their kids are ready for the real world, that they have all the skills and the mindsets and the family values, and they just want to do a good job with their kids. And they know that the school system isn't teaching it. They know that, they don't know what they don't know. And so we fill in those gaps for families because now I've helped over 7 million families in my career. So we know, we know how to stop the failure to launch problem, right? And a lot of it does come down to letting the kids solve their own problems. Okay. Let them figure things out. My definition of entitlement is a sustained pattern where kids have their problems solved for them so that they learn the habit that other people can solve my problems for me. And therefore, if I throw enough of a temper tantrum, or if I complain enough, or if I make life difficult enough for my parents, they'll solve my problem. And that is what you want to get away from. And so if kids can learn to solve their own problems and be more responsible and take more ownership over their life and the skills they're learning and things that apply to the real world, which is, again, different from school, then they have such a leg up on the competition. It's crazy. It's like an unfair advantage for the rest of their life. But what happens is so many parents think that to be a good, loving parent, they have to bubble wrap their kids, solve all their problems, pay for everything, fight the teacher for better grades, fight the coach for more playing time, bring lunch and everything if the kids mess up, or, oh, they didn't get their clothes, they don't have clean whatever for this or that,
Yeah.
Oh, we got to go out and buy the newest cleats. We all got to go out and do this. So parents just, they just solve all the problems for their kids over and over and over. And that's what breeds entitlement.
I love
right?
I was just going to say, I love the shout out to Failure to Launch there. It's an absolute great movie. Love that.
Yeah. But here's what happens. So, my expertise is in financial literacy. But it's kind of ironic that I don't even like the word literacy, because you can't read money like a book. You can't learn practical skills by just reading a book or watching a YouTube. You have to go do it. You can't homework money. This is why everyone rails against the education system. And they're like, why isn't my kid learning financial literacy? How come they're not learning critical thinking and practical skills? How does geometry help you with monthly budgeting and taxes? It's like, because you have to do it. You have to do it in the real world. And that's how parents can help their kids get a leg up, is by mimicking this stuff in the home. Match the environment of the real world at home in a safe environment where the kids learn these skills, so that when they get out into the real world, they're ready to go. They're unshaken. But here's what happens. So a lot of first generation success parents, like, they come from nothing or struggles or hardships, and then they get money, or they have a good salary job, or for instance, or they have their own business. Then they have children. And the first thing that they think of is, I just want to give my kids all the things I never had. I want to give them all the opportunities I never had. I want to give my kids I don't want them to have to deal with what I had to deal with, for God's sakes. And it's like, well, what made you? You can help your kids learn to be unshaken in the real world, but while still loving them deeply. In fact, I would argue that that's a deeper form of love, helping your kids be prepared for the world and sending them off with a huge cadre of skills and capabilities and confidence, because they've actually done those things in your house. So we call it value creation. That's the whole point. You want to get your kids to be creating value in all these different ways, not just money. I'm talking about a lot of different ways to create value. And once they have that lens to see the world and the training to do it, they will never worry about another job. You will never worry about their future. You will never have conflict over chores again. They'll never ask you for money and stuff. Like, they take responsibility and ownership.
Yeah,
so that's the point.
That's great. And, in terms of talking about practice, I was having this conversation with my dad leading up to this, in terms of the way that he raised me, right? And we had things that we could do around the house to help out, to make their life easier, kind of like what you talk about in your book, and creating value, that were assigned a certain value that we could go out and earn money for. And that was great. And that was part of the equation. But and speaking with him and kind of reflecting, what he was like, well, what I didn't do well is then following through on the other side of that, right? Like, what were the real world implications of, paying whatever it is that you define as a parent, rent or taxes, or, the real world implications that happen when you become an adult, and what we've seen in current generations that we're entitled. We got lucky. All three of my two sisters and myself, we turned out okay, and we're doing fine in life. But I have a feeling that becomes more as a reflection on other things they did as parents that maybe peers haven't had, which I think is really interesting. Maybe walk through the rest of that value creation cycle, right? So we're talking healthy struggle. You have a couple other steps in that cycle. What do those look like?
Yeah, so we created something called the value creation cycle. It's the best form of parenting I've ever seen. And it's not just because we made it up. We didn't make it up. We basically pulled it from the best families in the world. We learned it from what the best in the world do. And it's so good. It's not the gentle parenting or hover parenting or helicopter parenting or free range parenting, all that crap. It's basically just being a good planner as a parent and setting up systems in your house where your kids learn to create value everywhere they go. So here's the cycle. Okay. It's 4 steps in a circle. The first one is healthy struggles, right? Not solving their problems for them. My kids don't do chores at home. They build skills, for instance, right? It's a way better way of thinking about it. They learn capabilities. They learn real world things. My daughter planned our family summer trip. Like, we have our kids, doing gigs with their brain and their hands and feet. They're helping in the neighborhood. Like, they're going through healthy struggles to learn, right? And when you go through a healthy struggle as a kid, you get capability. You learn a skill or a talent or a capability, right? And when you've overcome something to learn something, you get confidence. That's the third step. And it's inner confidence. It's not outer confidence, because outer confidence is easily shaken. It can go away the moment something difficult happens. So you can't tell your kid enough times that they're smart or pretty or funny or good at soccer. That's outer confidence. Inner confidence comes from overcoming things and learning capabilities that help other people. That is what builds inner confidence, right? And then the last of the 4 steps is creating value creation. So the more that you go through healthy struggles to learn capabilities and confidence, the more value you can create in the world. And that's the real cycle for parenting. Help your kids go through that cycle hundreds of times before they leave your house. And it's like a superpower for the rest of their life.
Yeah. So since it's a cycle, is it then your job as a parent, once you get through that value creation stage, to then evaluate and set up that next healthy struggle, would you say?
Yeah, it's more of like a mindset for living. Parents have to be intentional. Okay, so let's unpack value for a second. Like, what is value creation? Like, that's really important before you go into healthy struggles, because most parents don't even want their kids to struggle at all. They're like, why would I want to see my kid go do something hard or struggle through anything? Well, let's talk about value for a second. I think the point here is, would you rather raise your kid to be entitled or lazy or anxious or a victim? Or would you rather raise them to be a value creation kid? That's the first question, right? And if you don't raise them to be a value creation kid, they will fall into one of those other buckets: spoiled or entitled, lazy, checked out, victim mindset, or anxious and self-doubting the rest of their life. So the stakes are actually very high here. And this is the top thing we've learned from the best 100 families in the world. So that's what I've been studying now for over a decade. The best families in the world that raised kids and grandkids and great-grandkids to blow by them in every way, not just money. In fact, money is a distant, check mark on the list. It's more values and mindsets and relationship and impact in the world and skill sets and the connection to the family. You do all that 4 generations in a row, you have what I call legacy. Everybody else thinks that legacy is just like making sure your kids have buildings and assets and money when you're dead. That is not legacy. Okay, that is lottery ticket kids. So legacy is raising kids to blow by you. And the number one thing we learn from these families is teach your kids to create value in the world first, not money. Money, if you just focus on money, it becomes identity and status and achievement. It becomes keeping up with the Joneses. It becomes their metric of they think how valuable they are is based on how much money they make or have. No, that's not the right thing. You have to go back to creating value for yourself and other people first, because money is just a store of value, and it's only one type of value. So if you have a mindset to be creating value everywhere you go for other people, it changes your life. So then you go, okay, well then let's unpack, how do you get kids to create value? Well, there's 3 types of value. You ready? There's material value you can create. There's emotional value you can create. And there's spiritual value that you can create in the world at any moment, at any time. You don't have to have any money to do it. You just have to be able to think about it. Okay. And money is actually only related to the first one. The other ones have nothing to do with money, usually. But if you get kids to have a lens to look at the world and say, how can I create value in these 3 ways today? Who can I create value for in these 3 ways? You literally, you change their lens from what I can get from the world to what I can give to the world, right? You give them an abundance mindset. You give them power and agency. This is the superpower for all children. So material value is the first one. This is the problems you solve. This is the gigs you do around the house. This is, opportunities that you can find to solve a problem for someone else and maybe even get paid for it, right? Everyone who has a job in the world is creating material value, hopefully. If they aren't creating material value, then they're probably not going to have a job for very long. So it's a really important thing to do. Learn capabilities and skills to solve problems for other people materially. The other one is emotional value. Emotional value is how you think, how you feel, how you help other people think and feel better. This is what makes for great friends, great siblings, classmates, teammates. The captain of every team creates the most emotional value on the team. They're the leader. The person who gets the job first is most likely the one with the most emotional intelligence. They create the most emotional value, not just material value. Okay, so emotional value is really, really important, and it rarely has to do with money. And then the last one is spiritual value, which can be interpreted a few different ways. For me, I think it's being connected to God and loving other people. Like, I think spiritual value is the eternal value. Like, this is connecting to something above your selfishness and your own pride and ego, and connecting to God and helping others connect to God. Now, I love Jesus. I don't pull any punches, man. Like, he's the way, the truth, and the life to me. But you know what else created spiritual value, in my opinion? When we, in the 60s, you and I were not alive. But in the 60s, I don't remember if it was JFK or whoever was president at the time. He said, we're going to put a man on the moon and bring him home safely by the end of the decade. It got everybody outside of their own self for once and focused us all on a common mission that was above ourselves. It actually created immense unity and spiritual value. Mm-hmm. So that's a third bucket altogether. Has nothing to do with emotional and material. I mean, they're kind of linked, but it's wholly separate.
Yeah.
So that's the 3 kinds of value that can be created. And if kids can learn that and go, hey, you know what? Right now, I can go help mom and dad around the house by doing this, this, and this. Material value. Hey, you know what? I can encourage my sibling or call my friend or help my classmate with this. Emotional value. Hey, you know what? I can pray for this person. I can learn to love. How can I love this person right now? How can I grow in this situation? That's spiritual value.
Yeah.
And so if you give kids to think of the world that way, if you get them to see the world that way, not that their identity is in how much value they create, like it's like quantitative, like, no, that's not the point. I believe that all humans have priceless value. They're of inestimable worth just by existing. Okay. But God refuses to leave us that way. And why would you use incredible gifts and capabilities and talents and do nothing with them to help serve and love the world? So yeah, let's go create as much value as we can. And so if kids can understand that, they get it's a superpower. I've seen families transform overnight. It's like the light bulb goes from off to on for kids. And they immediately start finding ways to create value in all those buckets. And then your home life with your kids is fantastic. It's so much more fun. And they're learning all these skills and capabilities in the process and confidence. So that's the reason why we teach what we teach. Yeah. And then we just give people tools to do it all. Like, we show them, we have systems and we have an app that helps their kids continue on that journey. It's a whole program families can go through with us at dinner table.
I love that you mentioned learning from the top 100 families, because the top seminars that I've seen at family office conferences are the ones that are defining these issues the same way that you are. It's just that they're not democratized to the general public in the way that you are with the Value Creation Kit. And then Gravy Stack as well. So maybe let's talk about your app, Gravy Stack, and your book, Value Creation Kid, and just one, your process of learning from these top 100 families, and then democratizing it for the general public in the way that you have.
Yeah. So my skill is codifying things, right? Like Tony Robbins is really good at taking the best knowledge in the health world, the finance world, and then codifying it for people. That's what I did with families, right? And I got to speak on his stage earlier this year. It was really fun, just sharing our mission. We want to help 50 million families succeed, right? Be closer together and raise confident, capable, and connected kids to succeed in the world. And so that's basically what I've done is study the best in the world, get to know them, interview them, really like become close friends with a lot of these families. We had our metrics and they taught us what they did. And the crazy thing is most of them do all the same things and almost nobody else does it. And that's what we wanted to teach the world. So now we've created our courses and our app and book, and everything is helping people learn these skills and these mindsets for the home. So we have the app. So it used to be called Gravy Stack. Now it's called Dinner Table. So if you just look up Dinner Table app, you can download it and use it. We also have our parenting and our family community at Dinner Table. So you just go to dinnertable.com. You can join the community. And we help coach families all over the world, like 59 countries now that we teach them in. And so we just give them these skills, give them these mindsets, and we watch them soar. So the book lends itself to help this. The app lends itself to help this. The app basically allows you to do what we call the family economy, where you do gigs in the home, you set up expectations, you set up the system. It's like a printout for the fridge. And the kids know exactly what they can do to earn money for the home by creating value. They know what things they're expected to do that have nothing to do with money. And then they have expenses that they're in charge of. So when they earn the money, that they can cover things on their own. So they stop asking mom and dad for money and stuff. No more conflicts over chores. Fixes all that. And then the kids just start growing. So that's what the app does. But it's all part of our big Dinner Table brand.
Yeah. Within that same breath, speaking from your perspective, speaking with these families, but then I know you also mentioned, in your book, reaching out to folks that you thought had well-rounded adult children, right? And kind of picking their brain on it. How important is it as a parent to set yourself up with a community that's like-minded, right? And by community, I mean outside of the home, where they're trying to accomplish the same thing, are going through the same struggles, implementing Dinner Table, Value Creation Kid, and trying to build that community around not only yourself, but also your kids.
Yeah, it's everything. If you are trying to do this alone without an inner circle, we call it the inner circle. If you're doing this alone without an inner circle to help you, to reinforce the right things, your kids playing with other kids that are being reinforced the same values and systems, good luck. Like we call it inner circle. We actually have a strategy and a training that we do inside of Dinner Table that helps families craft their inner circle and move out the wrong people and move in the right people around them. And so it's really, really important. There's a quote out there that says your network is your net worth. Well, we think your network is your legacy. It's way more than just your net worth. It's way more. And I will uproot my children to make sure that they are not with the wrong kid. If my kids are around a bad kid, like we'll do everything in our power to get them away from them. Because there's just so much of a negative influence that happens when you get the wrong crowd, especially when kids reach ages 12 to 14. They start looking at their peers instead of their parents as their values and mindset, and they're trying to figure it out themselves. So you've got to make sure they have trusted mentors and advisors and good friends. That's a really important thing that most families overlook, right? And we call it the teenager hack. Your kids need to have other trusted mentors and advisors around them at that age to reinforce the things you care about most. That is critical. So that's why community is so valuable. I mean, we help families all the time. They realize, oh, wow, I'm related to somebody that I don't want to have an influence on my kids.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's the family you were born with, and then there's the family you choose, right? And you need to understand that as a parent. Like, you can actually get your kids around the right people. You can become friends with the right families. You can build a network of people that agree to your top 10 values, right? And the things that you care about. You can attract that. And that's such an incredibly, it's a huge goal for your family. You should be setting that up to put the right people around your kids.
Yeah. And conversely, or somewhat conversely speaking, let's talk about noise for a minute, because we do live in this world where there's just an immense amount of information and it's at our fingertips, and it can be difficult to sift through that information and find, something that's helpful and correct. How do you teach that within dinner table or value creation kit, or just in terms of speaking with folks, to sift through that information and find, the things that are going to be positive and going in the right direction versus things that are just going to be setbacks?
Yeah, I think a lot of our content is tested and proven with the best families in the world. So it's like, there is no roadmap for parenting. Like, nobody gives you a roadmap when you have a kid. You just have a kid.
Yeah.
And you walk out of the hospital and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to raise this human. So we wanted to give the roadmap of just tried and tested strategies for families to succeed. And unfortunately, these are not being taught in school. Many of these things are not even thought about in the education system. But what happens so often is that parents try to outsource their parenting. So they outsource it to church or school or, youth group or camps or sports or extracurricular. They're just trying to send their kids off to get these things. And oftentimes they don't get what's needed. And so what we're saying is, hey, this stuff starts around the dinner table. You got to learn this stuff at home with mom and dad first. And then those other things can be great add-ons. But I've seen way too many people with adult children that are like, oh my gosh, I thought I did everything right. We moved to the good area. We put them in the good school. We were at church every week, whatever it would be. We got the extracurriculars. They learned all these, camps. Well, if you're just trying to outsource all this development, it usually never works, because then they turn into their mid-20s and they're entitled and victimhood and anxiety or issues, and they fall away from the things you care about as a parent, or they reject you or blame you, even worse, right? A victim mindset always blames their parents first. So That's why it's really important to just listen to the right stuff. Get rid of the noise. There's so much content out there. There's enough content for 1 billion years already. And most famous people have no idea what they're talking about. So, they just never let your influence grow wider than your character is deep. And that's a really important thing to understand. You're seeing a bunch of highlight reels online when you go online. You're not looking at their backstage. Mm-hmm. Well, I know all these people, and I know their backstage, and it rarely meets the front. So you got to just take the good, leave the bad. And I would focus on just simple strategies for the home, simple things for your family, simple things for your marriage, your business, your kids, your faith, your health. Keep it simple.
Yeah.
So if it's too complex, you won't do it.
A term that's been sticking in my head, because I operate in the commercial real estate space, and obviously most people come to us for passive income, is passive income, active everything else. And it could not be more important in parenthood, of just consistently being active in the way that you approach raising your kids, because the world makes it so easy to be passive and to outsource things, especially, parenthood. You send them off to school, send them off to sports, send them off to church. And before you know it, your time spent is, an hour in front of the TV with your kids a night. And that just isn't going to cut it. So in terms of preparing for this, man, I just absolutely love reading or skimming the book and just, trying to figure out what it is that you're preaching about and how important it is. I do want to switch gears before we sign off a little bit, because obviously the topic is important, but you're also an entrepreneur. So I just want to kind of pick your brain on your entrepreneurial, journey and what that's been like for you and what you feel like is your purpose, right?
Yeah. I mean, ask away, man. I'm an open book. I've had every success and failure in the book in business. And, I think Someone asked me recently why I'm an entrepreneur, and I was like, well, I'm unemployable. That's the first thing. That was the joke. But I think the true reason is like it's the only thing I've ever done in my life that truly brings me to my knees in prayer. Like I am not in control. And when you're trying to control so many things, you realize how out of control you actually are and how many things you just have to trust and let go of. And entrepreneurship actually does that. So many other people depend on someone else for their job.
Mm-hmm.
You know, entrepreneurs are kind of like the last line of defense in results and success and failure. I mean, you're in the Coliseum, you're in the arena, dude. You're not in the crowds. And so I just think it's one of the greatest faith builders of my life, not to mention it's one of the greatest ways to directly impact other people. There's a freedom in it that is like, when you taste it, you can't go back. Freedom of time and money and relationship and purpose, learning the skill sets and the capabilities to just be able to go out and create something that helps other people and solves a problem, you know, for a profit, even better. Now, I've created a lot of things that haven't made profit, but the few things that do have been helped millions and millions of people, right? So that's why I'm an entrepreneur.
Yeah. And why, this course in terms of what you're venturing down and creating purpose for your life? Like, how did you get to helping families tackle these issues versus, something
Anything else?
Anything else?
The least profitable opportunity. Well, I've had a bunch of companies. I've had like 7 companies. We own another dozen. We've done it all, man. The real estate and the golf courses and the insurance stuff and like a bunch of investments. But my primary businesses have always been trying to help kids and families. That's just where my heart is. That's my passion. That's what breaks my heart. That's what I see as one of the best ways to change our world for the better, is helping the next generation actually succeed, helping families, protecting the family, building back the nuclear family. These are some of the greatest threats, existential threats to our culture, to our world. And the only way to win that war is to create something of so much value that people can't help but do it and get the benefit of it. And so that's really why we got here today. One of the first businesses I created was a school fundraising company to help my wife. It was called Apex. And we do fun runs. This is 15 years ago. We would do fun runs at schools. We would put on events and teach kids leadership and character traits, and they'd raise money for the school, and it would raise $50,000, $100,000. And that business started to scale very, very quickly. We started franchising it. We started moving to new states. We've helped 7 or 8 million kids just with that one company. Raised over $500 million, I want to say. Now, amazing program. And that's where I started to realize, wow, kids, there's some holes in the education system that I don't know if they'll ever be able to fill. It started with financial and business skills, and then practical skills and creative thinking and critical thinking, problem solving. A lot of that we wanted to fill in the gap. So we started a bunch of projects and doing children's business fairs and creating online businesses for kids, helping them launch, and doing this app, the banking app for kids, Gravy Stack, right? Which is now Dinner Table, which ultimately led to our training program for families. So that's what Dinner Table really is now. It's from the best in the world, the best families. We codified it, follow the strategies, implement this in your home, and you're good to go. And use the app, use our tools and our systems. But that's what led us here. And now our goal is to help 50 million families. So I'm driven for it, man. I could make money doing a million things.
Yeah.
But this one is way too important. We do want to turn this into a massive company, but the problem is too important not to solve. And that's why I'm here still. Years and years of building this thing. I'll do this till the day I die because it's too critical.
If you're a parent right now who sees the value in this, but hasn't necessarily fulfilled their duty, their responsibility to date, and their kids are aging, what do you say to those parents that are just worried that maybe they haven't done the job that they were supposed to?
Number one question I used to get asked was, help me teach my kids about money. Number one question I get asked now is, where were you 10 years ago? Where were you 20 years ago? It's too late. And that's a lie. It is never too late. These are recipes, and recipes over time go in the right direction. So it does not matter if you've had a bunch of problems or chaos, or you've missed the boat with your kids here and there, or you've gone through divorce or business problems or whatever. Like, every family has crazy in it. Even the best, even these top 100 families have crazy in them. But this is a recipe that over time builds deeper family, deeper relationships, better training, stronger kids, and more value gets created over time. So what we say is, like, look, your setbacks are setups. So you can use all the things that happened in your past to be an incredible teaching tool for others in the future. Use it to create value. And then it's never too late.
Amen. Well, Scott, and this is great. And like I said, I can't wait to dive into the rest of the book and read it in depth versus just taking high level notes. For those that are interested, obviously we've given a shout out to Value Creation Kid and Dinner Table. How else can they follow you, get in touch with you, whatever modes you're open to?
Yeah. We have social media. They can just find me. I'm Scott Donnell, or look up Dinner Table anywhere online. I would just join Dinner Table. You just go to community.dinnertable, and they can join our parenting community. Resources every day. It's free to start, easy to get a ton of information. Our courses are in there for free. That's the best way to start. And then, if people want to ping me directly, just find me on socials and DM me, and I'll work with your family or your business or your school, your church. Like, we're bringing on those groups now and coaching them all up. So massive group coaching. So yeah, if they want to get a hold of me, they can do that.
Awesome, man. Well, I love your purpose, and I really appreciate your time kind of reaching out to my network, and happy to follow along and watch you guys succeed in the future, and just thankful that my wife and your wife were able to put us together.
Awesome, man. That was great.
Awesome.
Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much.